death of Tony Stark left a bad impression for many of his fans, there has been a lot of talk about how we need to see more of him in the future. With this in mind, we've put together the top 10 ways Tony Stark can come back to life, all of which are possible within the framework of the Marvel Universe. Also comment Stark and we'll give a lucky winner a shout out in the next video. Number 10. Fans insist they want more Tony Stark. When fans start a petition that receives support from over 50,000 people in a few days, it's clear that they really mean business. That's exactly what happened when someone started a movement to try to insist that Tony Stark be brought back to life because they simply can't get enough of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. It should be said that this doesn't necessarily mean that they'll get their wish, but it does show producers as well as everyone else involved with the character that people will definitely be happier with Stark making a miraculous comeback. We're sure that this change won't happen immediately, but it does suggest that it's potentially worthwhile to start making those moves, and if fans are willing to throw their hard-earned money at an Iron Man reboot, they do stand to make a lot of money in the future if they choose to give the people what they want. The original petition has sparked a ton of interest from others and has brought their issues to the forefront in a big way, with even more petitions popping up and focusing on the exact same subject. Only time will tell if their complaints end up leading to a successful re-emergence of one of Marvel's favorite characters. But it's definitely a step in the right direction for people who were gutted when Robert Downey Jr. announced that he wouldn't be reprising the role and that Stark was dead and gone for good. Number 9. Spin-offs do happen. Even if Tony Stark doesn't make another appearance in the Marvel movies, that doesn't mean we can't expect a possible spin-off sometime in the days or years to come. Surprises of that nature do happen all the time, especially when it comes to the Marvel movies, and the lore in the comic books allows for plenty of these types of spin-offs to occur across a variety of potential mediums. Live-action movies, TV shows, or even cartoons could already be on the table without the general public being any the wiser, with writers and producers simply biding their time and waiting for the right moment to arrive before they unleash their new version of Stark upon the world. A perfect example of this would be the fact that Deadpool was never going to be a thing if the people making the initial decisions about these things had their way, with a strategically leaked video causing a huge push to bring the movie back to the forefront, which was something that producers simply could not ignore. There are also plenty of Marvel storylines left to tell, and many of these could easily bring Stark back to make a guest appearance, even if he isn't a central character. A movie prequel could achieve this feat with absolutely no problems at all, and with all the twists and turns the comic books have taken throughout their run, help to sum up the idea that literally anything can happen in the Marvel Universe with little to no notice ahead of time. This being the case, plenty of fans are okay with the move to kill off Tony Stark, if only because they remain convinced that they'll see him pop up to support other characters, or even feature in his very own dedicated spin-off. Crazier things have happened, and death really doesn't mean all that much to Stark, who had died plenty of times in the past as far as the comic books are concerned. Number 8. He can be rebooted. As we just mentioned, Tony Stark has been rebooted a ton in the past after he was seemingly dead for good, and we have no doubt that producers have at least given the possibility some serious thought before this point. The Marvel Universe doesn't seem to follow the rules of the real world at all, and a character dying never truly means that they're down for the count, with no chance of being rebooted in some crazy, comic book-esque kind of way. If Stark can continue to improve his suit to reach even greater heights, who's to say that he actually didn't plan for this inevitability while he was still alive? He's even seen a few reboots that the movies didn't really touch on, and simply assuming that his death means an absolute and final death doesn't really make sense. Stark not coming back ever is a point of view that only relative newcomers to the scene are convinced of, with hardcore fans who have followed the comics for years being more content to sit back, chill out, and wait to see what surprises the future has in store. Deciding that we'll never see Stark again is definitely a bit of a rookie move, and all of this outrage is probably misplaced as far as we're concerned. Number 7. Plot twists happen all the time. We alluded to this earlier, but it does bear repeating. Plot twists are a staple of Marvel Comics, and assuming that Stark won't be involved in a surprise twist of fate is just plain silly in so many ways. In a universe where a random character can create massive ripples in or change to the space-time continuum, we have no doubt that even a minor plot twist can have huge consequences for all the characters involved, and that includes Tony Stark as well. All that we need is some superhero magic to bring him back in his entirety, and we've made it clear already that this type of revival has happened before, so we're sure it wouldn't take much for it to happen again. The only thing stopping this movie from taking place would be real-world obligations or decisions that would obviously supersede anything that happens in the comic book or movie worlds. This could include Robert Downey Jr. simply not wanting to continue playing the part of Tony Stark, but he does seem to have a lot of fun in the role, and we have to say that he's very good at it, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to think that this is very much a possibility. Then again, it may not happen in the way that fans want, and we hope that any potential plot twists don't require him being taken over by a symbiote, or something like that, although that move would make for one hell of a cool plot twist when all is said and done. Number 6. Comic book tech is seriously futuristic. We're always blown away by the type of tech that's shown off in the comic book world, and Tony Stark, with his near unlimited resources and absolute genius, has always been surrounded by stuff that even manages to impress the other superheroes when he starts showing off his toys, gadgets, and accessories. Batman can't even hold a candle to him in this regard. The Marvel Universe blows DC out of the water, without a hope of even catching up or even matching the technological prowess of their characters. His suit alone has received a ridiculous amount of upgrades, even as we followed along with the movies that he's been in. And if he was working on something super secret in the background that can potentially bring him back to life, then we wouldn't be surprised at all. Number 5. Someone else can fake his rebirth. It also wouldn't be too hard for Iron Man to make a reappearance without Robert Downey Jr., given the fact that someone could easily toss an Iron Man suit on and show up to kick some serious ass without actually revealing the character underneath. Sure, it may be a bit of a cop-out, and people would be suspicious about never seeing the person behind the mask, but that's something else that isn't totally unknown in the comic book movies. We've seen various iterations of Spider-Man, the Hulk, and many other superheroes played by all sorts of actors over the years. Robert Downey Jr. was, we have to admit, a great Iron Man, and he brings a lot to the table when he takes on a character. But it's not like he's the only person able to do well in the role and keep us interested. We're sure that people would be okay with just the suit popping in and out here and there, never pulling the mask back or taking the suit off. Having Iron Man show up for even 15 minutes to show up, kick some bad guy butt, and then peace out to destinations unknown would still keep many fans happy, regardless of the fuss that hardcore Robert Downey Jr. fans making a big stink about switching out actors or not having enough of Iron Man in whatever movie he can make a reappearance in. They could even make a point of adding a storyline that sees a younger upstart finding the suit, fixing it up, making a few adjustments, and then stepping into the superhero's shoes to continue the character. Despite that move not being exactly what people were hoping for, it still would bring Iron Man back to life. And if that's done right, then we're not sure most of the series fans would eventually accept the newcomer. Number 4. The suit is built to house a broken heart. When you consider that the Iron Man suit was absolutely built to contain a beaten down and broken heart within its frame, it wouldn't be too much to adapt its abilities to contain a mostly broken body if Tony Stark coming back to life was necessary. All that futuristic tech we mentioned earlier generally has no bounds and is only limited by the imagination of the writers tasked to make it happen. So many things in the Marvel Universe are already pretty far-fetched when compared to the real world, and it would only take a few lines of dialogue to explain all sorts of crazy improvements that were made to the suit. It doesn't really need a fully functioning body to control it, and we bet that it could easily contain a copy of Stark's mind that was somehow downloaded into itself or something just as science fiction-y if that's how writers chose to play it. There are lots of other superheroes who have that sort of intelligence, and if one of the superheroes on that list decided to dedicate themselves to that cause, they could pull it off no problem. Smart people abound in the world of comic books, so we have no doubt in our minds that a few clever people could no doubt come up with a reasonable explanation as to why the suit would be able to bring a broken body back to life, even if Stark wasn't actually able to continue living without the suit. Then again, not being able to take the suit off would probably get super uncomfortable at a certain point, but it would be easy to make up yet another plot twist that explains that issue as well. Crazier things, after all, have definitely happened. Number 3. He's faked death before. Newcomers to the scene only have the movies to reference the life of Tony Stark, but fans of the comic books are already aware of the fact that Tony Stark has faked his death numerous times in the past, only to make a serious comeback when he's needed, popping back up to make some really clutch moves. It hasn't happened once or twice after all, and bringing these story arcs into the movies would still keep the spirit of the original comics intact without too much of a stretch. If people in the real world are capable of faking everyone out and faking their death, then we're sure comic book characters in the movies aren't above doing the exact same thing. If a superhero needs to fake their death for the greater good, you can rest assured that they won't hesitate to do so. If all of our other points aren't all that far-fetched when it comes to believability, then a fake death would be child's play, especially for a character as brilliant as Tony Stark. Number 2. The multiverse has multiple versions of Stark. With all of the universes contained in the Marvel multiverse, who's to say that another version of Tony Stark who grew up in an alternate reality can't make his way over to the reality that we know and love? All the reasons for this are pretty much infinite, and there are lots of other characters capable of transversing the multiverse in order to get a different Stark to come back with them in order to help out and save the world. This move doesn't usually happen because it would take a lot of time and effort, making it not all that worth Stark's time to do so unless things were really about to hit the fan. But it's not like it can't happen. With an infinite number of Tony Starks and a seemingly limitless number of universes, we can definitely see one of them being able to show up for a brief time before going back to their own world. Furthermore, if that alternate reality happens to be truly broken, then the alternate Tony Stark may even prefer the one we know to the original universe and simply choose to stay in order to help fight crime in a world where there are actually people left to save. As we've highlighted throughout today's list, crazier things most definitely have happened. Number 1. Legion has untold power. We've already alluded to the fact that a super smart superhero could bring Tony Stark back, with nothing more than a serious dedication to improving their current technology to make sure it happens. On top of that, you've got superheroes like Legion, who is literally capable of blinking any of those universes in and out of existence, by sheer will and a snap of his fingers when he manages to achieve his full power. All it would take then would be for a character like David to decide that he misses Stark and will him back into existence. We're not totally clear whether or not this would be a perfect copy of Stark, or a revival of the person behind the Iron Mask, but it's doable and has happened plenty of times in the comic books with other characters. Bringing back one person takes nowhere near the same amount of power as it would to bring back a full universe. If recreating a complete universe is possible, then Stark being brought back would be super simple for a mutant like Legion to pull off without breaking a sweat.